Greece was an awesome country to visit, but different from what I expected in quite a few ways. Hey guys, thanks for watching The Wandering Barbarian. Now, most of you probably know me from my main channel, The Cimmerian Scholar, where I talk about the works of Robert E. Howard, who was a pulp fiction writer from the 1930s. He wrote Conan the Barbarian, that's what he's most famous for. But the types of videos that I spend most of my time watching on YouTube are actually travel videos. Specifically, I like channels like Peter Santinello and Fearless and Far, who go to places that we as the viewers might have a particular perception about, and they get sort of the more unbiased view of the area while talking to different locals and getting a real feel for what the community is like in those places. So because of that, I've wanted to do a travel video for a long time, and I recently got the opportunity to go and visit Greece. So I thought this would be the perfect way to start this channel. Now I'll probably have 3 different videos covering Greece based on the stuff that I did while I was there. This first one is all about Athens, which is of course the capital and the largest city in Greece. And then we did a little island hopping adventure. So for the next 2 videos, I'm going to be talking about the island of Naxos, which was really a hidden treasure over in Greece, as it's one of the islands that I don't often hear people talk about, but it was really something, and I've got some great footage for that video. And then after that, of course, Santorini, the one that everyone thinks about when they think about Greece. But starting out, we are talking about Athens. Now for this trip, we went on a guided tour with the company Gate 1, and shout out to them because they really do an excellent job of removing all of the headache of travel. From the time we arrived to the time we left, there was no questions about what was going on or how we should do things. We had 2 excellent local guides that spoke English as well as Greek, of course, so they could communicate for us if we needed them to, but there really was no need because they guided us through the whole way. Now, the beautiful thing about this particular trip is that it is what they call a walking tour, and I think this is kind of a new thing for Gate 1 as a company. I guess they are doing a lot more of these now. And what was really special about this trip is that we had the opportunity to go into some of the more local parts of the country that are not the touristy areas that everyone thinks about. So for example, when we were in Naxos, we actually did a hike into the island further off the coast into more of the countryside and got to eat some more like the types of meals that a family might eat in their house and see some different things like that. So it wasn't just the typical tourist things that we saw. We actually got a little bit more of a close and personal, more intimate perception of the country. Both of our guides were extremely knowledgeable about Greece, obviously, but also about a lot of the rest of the world too. And they were able to answer a lot of our questions when it came to the dynamics of the country, where the country fits in with the rest of the world, as well as what I particularly loved, our main guide, Vasilis was his name. He was a huge history buff and big into Greek mythology. So he got to give us all the details about the different ancient things that we saw, as well as the mythology that people believed and all of this stuff. So it was really awesome. Now, of course, Greece is a very old country with an extremely long history. So having a guide that can give you all of these historical details is kind of essential for getting the proper experience of Greece. Now, starting off in Athens, we landed in the airport and went to a driver who took us on a drive through the city to where we would be staying, which was a hotel close to the Acropolis. And the first thing I noticed about Greece was Athens in particular. It just looked a little different than I expected. Now, for us, people who are not from Greece and other countries, we obviously have this perception of the country based on all of the pictures and the videos that we see that show all of the highlights, the Acropolis, the Meteora, the ancient structures and all this. But the rest of the country doesn't exactly look like this, of course, because this is a modern country with cities and, all this stuff. But Athens as a city is a little strange. I've noticed this in other countries I've been to. Now, I'm from the United States, so of course, my experience in the US is a lot different than my experience in other countries. And one of the biggest things is that the US has a lot of space and it's more spread out. When you go to cities in a lot of other countries like South Korea, even Tijuana, Mexico, or Greece, you notice that buildings are not quite as wide and spread out as what we're used to in the United States. And this is true of Greece as well. When you're driving through Athens, you see a lot of these gray buildings that are very tightly packed. Now, from what I understand, from what I got from the guides, the roads are not really set up for the population. And this is very obvious when you're driving through the city. The roads are extremely narrow and there are cars parked all along both sides, making it feel like a one-way street. And I think a lot of the streets are actually one-way streets, but very difficult for these vehicles to get through. Everyone in Greece kind of drives like compact cars, the majority of people anyway, and that's really out of necessity. There's no way they could drive a large, Ford pickup truck through the streets of Athens. It would be terrible. However, the people in Greece seem to be pretty used to this and are actually quite good drivers as they have to navigate these difficult streets. Our guide explained to us that there aren't really a lot of parking areas built in Athens, and that's why everyone's parked up along the streets. The other thing that really caught me off guard was the amount of graffiti that is all over the city. There is graffiti everywhere. And our guide kind of said we Greeks, we express ourselves in different ways, something like that. But it really is quite a lot of graffiti. And I'll get the most interesting thing out of the way before I start getting into some of the really impressive highlights. But what was most strange about Greece is it actually kind of makes me think of Mexico. Now, most of you watching this, I know you're going to hear that and think, that can't be right. But if you're someone who's been to both Mexico and to Greece, you know exactly what I'm talking about, especially if you've been to Tijuana. There are similarities in a lot of different ways. In fact, the architecture, a lot of the buildings in Greece have the sort of terracotta colored tile roofs that you would see in Mexico. And a lot of the buildings just look kind of similar. And the graffiti as well. Now, I kind of wondered why this was, and I'm not entirely sure, but Greece is a very old country and the United States is a very young country. Now, we already see in certain parts of the United States that there is a lot of graffiti in different places, but for the most part, it's nowhere near what you see in Greece. And I wonder if maybe it's just because of how young the United States is. I wouldn't be surprised if 100 years from now, there's graffiti all over the United States. I hope not. Okay, personally, I know some people really like graffiti. I'm not a fan of it. I think it looks like a sticker book, it's kind of messy and it defaces buildings, and for me, I'm not really into it. But, some people really like it, but that's just me. Now, the food, the entire trip, The food in Greece is insane, and I probably gained 10 or 15 pounds on this trip because I could not stop eating. The food is so good. It's a little different than what you might expect because a lot of people, at least in our tour group, had this perception that they eat a lot of fish in Greece. But our tour guides were telling us they really don't. It's a lot more beef and chicken and stuff like that. And in fact, one of the things that I expected was that you would be able to go and get lamb gyros, like what we eat in America when we go get Greek or Mediterranean food, but actually they don't really put lamb in the gyros over there. It's usually chicken or pork. You can get lamb, and I had lamb a couple times, but it's not usually made in gyros. So obviously the big thing that we saw in Greece was the Acropolis, and this really was astounding. Just walking up these steps that are thousands of years old and seeing the ancient structures that sadly are falling apart and everything. But what I didn't realize at the time is that the Acropolis, the Parthenon that we see today, is actually the third Parthenon. I think this is what our guides were telling us, that there had been two others that were both destroyed by, I think they said, the Persians, and then maybe the Ottoman Empire, and then the Byzantines, the Nazis. So there had been a lot of destruction of the Acropolis. Now, while you're there, you'll see temples to different gods, obviously the Parthenon, and there's this amphitheater sort of thing in there as well as some other stuff. And I'm just going to play through a bunch of footage because there's no way I'm going to remember every detail the tour guides said. But in future videos, when I do the ones about the islands, I did record some little bits of the tour guides talking so I can include those. I wish I had done that for Athens, but I didn't. But then we also went and saw the Acropolis Museum, where a lot of artifacts that they found digging are being displayed. Now, the unfortunate thing that they really talked about a lot was how a lot of this stuff is in Britain. There's a museum, the famous British Museum, where a lot of these artifacts from the Acropolis are at. And Greece has tried to get them back, but they're not able to. And I mean, you know, everyone was bummed out and upset about this, but this is just the reality of things. Obviously, a place goes, a more powerful force comes and takes things. It's going to take a more powerful force to go and take them back. That's just how it is. But as a result, they don't have a lot of the original artifacts. So you'll see different stone, like they have little different colors, where some of them are new recreations of the artifacts they don't have. And then they have some originals, which are in a more dull color. And then they also have spots in the museum that are just empty to show the things that don't exist anywhere anymore, that have been completely destroyed. So they sort of have it set up to account for all of the above. After we got done seeing all that, we walked through the city. We went and saw the Parliament building, where the tomb of the unknown soldier is there, and they do the changing of the guard every hour. And this is just like in America. We have the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and do the changing of the guard as well. So we got to watch that. And then we went underground to the metro that they have set up. Now, they explained to us that this was built back in the early 2000s when the Olympics were held in Greece, and they built all this infrastructure to account for that. But our guides explained to us that the country is still paying this stuff off. In fact, one of the guides said they're going to be paying for this metro for the rest of their lives. It was really interesting. We got to ask a lot of these different questions about, you know, I was particularly curious because our guides were explaining how Greece isn't quite like first world America, but it's not a third world country either. And when you're there, you pay for everything with euros. So I asked him about that because obviously I was like, okay, Greek is part of the European Union. That's why they're using euros. And it was surprising to me how the US dollar is worth less than the euro, especially because, you know, I go to Mexico and the US dollar is worth more than the peso. And just being an American, I kind of am thinking, well, our dollar's got to be worth a lot, right? But it is less than the European Union. And I kind of am sitting there wondering why that is. But of course, with the European Union, you have this collective of a bunch of different countries that boosts the economy. The tour guide, when I asked him, explained to me that it was relatively recent. I think it was in like the early 2000s, he was saying that Greece joined the EU. And before that, they had a different currency, which would have been worth less money. So they're not quite a third world country. And I think this is largely because of the EU. Otherwise, I'm not sure that they would have the status that they do. The country is big for producing wine and olive oil and things like this. But one of their largest income sources is tourism, obviously, which, I mean, that just makes sense because of all the ancient stuff that's in Greece. A lot of people want to travel there to see it. Now, for the rest of the video, I'm probably just going to kind of show clips and footage of Athens. But the videos I'm going to be putting out next of the islands, I do have more details and, like I said, footage of the tour guides talking and stuff. So there should be some more information in those ones. But I hope you guys enjoy this. I really have wanted to do kind of a travel channel for a long time. So hopefully this video does well. Be sure to hit subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. And if you want to see the other Greece videos, I'm not going to be uploading to this channel as often as I do my main channel, obviously, because taking trips is expensive, so it's going to be here and there kind of thing. But I just, it's something I wanted to do, and I thought I could do it on the side in addition to my main channel. Now, if you guys are curious about my other channel, feel free to head on over to the Sumerian Scholar. I'll put a link in the description so you guys can check it out. But just know that really I'm talking about fiction, fantasy, literature on that channel, so it might not be not everyone that watches this channel is probably gonna like that stuff. I also have a Patreon. If you have any interest in supporting me as a creator, you can click the link in the description below to go and check that out. It's $3 a month, and there's a few things I offer on there, a comic series that I made that's available, and some other stuff too, but it's really just kind of a support thing for people to support me. Now, if you like the footage I got in Athens, definitely hit the like button. That helps the channel a ton. And let me know if you've ever been to Greece and what your first impressions were. But aside from that, I'll see you guys over in the next video.